Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Artist on Purpose podcast. I'm here with Carol LeBaron. She is in Tennessee, and she's an amazing textile dye artist. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
All right, I will. And actually, yes, I'm based in Tennessee, but at this moment, I'm on Squam Lake, New Hampshire. So if anybody's like, that looks more like New Hampshire, it's because it is right now.
Okay.
Because this time of year, I come up here, and I could do some work up here. And my family, I'm from here. I'm from New England, and grew up in these houses on the lake. So that I grew up with nature. I grew up just loving everything about nature, insects, birds, never being afraid of an ant, just wanting to learn more about it. That's just who my whole family was. My cousin's job for years was going around on the lake and taking care of the loons, and so it's Audubon. He worked for the Audubon Society for years. He just retired. So
Wow.
I say this. My background is basically New England. Thoreau, Emerson, grew up with those philosophies. Back to the woods. We hiked as kids. We went camping. We went hiking. I learned to make a fire when I was like 7. That was our life, and it's part of who I am, and informs who I am. Now, as far as being an artist goes, I didn't actually come into my own as being an artist until after I graduated from high school, and that was back in 1972. So I'm going to date myself right now. I'm going to celebrate the fact that I am an artist in the fullness of everything, and to that point, and I'll come back to this, I've just been invited to do an entire museum installation at the Clarksville Museum in Clarksville, Tennessee in 2029. I'm going to get to have the whole museum floor. So
That's amazing. I love that.
excited.
I love that.
The exhibit is called All Is Not Lost.
All is not lost.
Yes, and this is the first place this is being announced.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, it's not actually officially announced until a couple of weeks from now, but
I'm just saying this is the first. I mean, I've told people, in my membership, but I haven't said it on any public forum. I haven't posted it on my website. I haven't, because it's all a really new invitation and new project. But it fits here because you're celebrating art and artists and trajectories and dreams. And one of my favorite artists is Lee Bonteque. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
So I'll spell her name, Lee, and then Bontekou. And she's, probably in her 90s now. But she, her father worked for Grumman Canoe. And so she was very influenced by the Pacific Northwest art. And she made all these incredible pieces out of canvas and aluminum. And they're just powerful, very, very powerful. And, I love the abstract expressionists, people like Helen Frankenthaler, Rothko, large color fields. It's just, that, whatever that connectedness with color is, I'm all about color. But as a child, I had some bad experiences in art classes.
Oh.
There's an airplane flying by. Is that interfering with you or just me?
Let's just go with it. This is the way it goes. It's as if we're on your front porch right now. So
Yeah, the seaplane. The loons don't like the seaplane either.
I bet they don't.
Anyway, so I'll just tell one little story. I was at a summer camp, and we had to make these trivets that were like they gave you a piece of wood that was 8 by 8 and all of these carpet tacks.
I remember those.
Rounded. Yeah, and you pounded the carpet tacks in with a hammer. And we had a picture of a star. Somebody had drawn a 5-pointed star on there. So the idea was the trivet was in the shape of a star, which I didn't really notice the star. I put a, and I can remember this, and I was probably 7. And I put a tack in each point of the star. I remember doing that. And I remember going along the lines and hammering, and then I remember just loving the surface. And I was hammering, and for a long time I was just filling this thing up with tacks. And all of a sudden there's this voice behind me, "What are you doing?" And like, and it just, they took away the hammer and the tacks. They said it was done. It's still over at Squam. I still have it. If I'd remembered, I would have grabbed it from over there. You can still see like the last vestiges of the star drawn. It still is around. But I was doing something wrong because I was, taking all the tacks and I was making too much noise. And that wasn't the only experience that I had like that. So, when it came to high school and art classes, I just wasn't interested. I did other things. And when I left high school, I went and lived on a 600-acre farm. It was the 70s. And I was taking care of horses and doing the things that we did in the 70s. Yep. And I decided I was a weaver woman and Ariadne and making magic, and I wove this mandala on a wagon wheel, and I did all this tapestry, and I started making bags, double weave bags, and selling them at craft fairs. So I just got enamored with weaving. And I had decided not to go to college at that point because I was a rebel.
Of course.
But long story short, I was young then. I was 17 when I left home. I went away to this farm instead of going to college. But they ruled me around or whatever, and I ended up making a portfolio out of all these weavings, and took some art lessons because you had to draw 3 drawings to get into Rhode Island School of Design. You had to draw a bicycle, a pair of shoes, and something of your own choice. I drew my loom. Got into RISD and started working, did weaving and textiles, and that was really the beginning of my art. And there was a lot of stuff happened in between there, including 3 children, a marriage, a divorce, all the things.
Yep.
And just throughout, I was experimenting with different things, sometimes to more, sometimes to less. I left RISD and went to Smith and studied Eastern art and religion with Marilyn Rhee, because back at that time, RISD did not embrace liberal arts. It was like trade. Art was not seen the same. The colleges were different. Everything was different then.
Right.
Everything was different then. I don't know how old you are, but
I'm a little younger than you, but I know what you're talking about.
Yes,
I grew up in the South, where things a little slower on the east side over there. So
yeah, and I live in Tennessee now, and I live in Tennessee because I ended up going to Smith, graduating from Smith, doing some other things, photography, whatnot. And then going back to graduate school in 1996 or 7. And I went to graduate school at RISD. I got into the textile program again. And so, the universe wasn't done with me. Yeah. And there was a crossroads between textile design in New York, teaching, and I ended up taking the teaching, which wasn't great for money, but it landed me in Tennessee, which was a great place for craft, because in the 90s, crafts were not seen as art yet.
No.
So the kind of work that I did didn't fit into any galleries. Didn't understand it. I didn't get into any big galleries. I didn't, make it, quote unquote. But as soon as I landed in Tennessee and started doing what I was doing, which is a signature process, and I'll get to that, I started getting into museums and winning prizes and doing well with my art. Didn't fit into the academic world, so I ended up, becoming private in the adjunct forces after 3 years full time. Of course, it was 9/11 too, so all the colleges lost their funding.
Right.
It was 2001 when I went down there, so it was just a different time. I remember teaching color theory, and I'm up. It was 8:00 in the morning. It was an 8:00 class, and the day after the Twin Towers were hit, because I didn't have. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think it was a Tuesday. And I was hiking with my friend, and her daughter came running out of the trailer at the bottom of the mountain. They had 40-acre farm. She's like, "Mama, they done gone bomb the Trade Center." We're like, "Oh my gosh," just like that. It was just like that. And we're like, "What?" And I had just moved to Tennessee. I was all by myself. I was all alone. My husband hadn't moved all the stuff down yet. I got an American flag, like from my mother sent it to me. From my grandfather, he was a commander in the Navy. I hung at my front window so my house would look like all the other houses.
Right.
And these are just it's just you. I was on the page with that, and then what am I going to do? I went to class the next day. My whole classroom was full. Every single student was there, looking at me like I had some pearls of wisdom or something to say. It was a color theory class. And I said, "You know what? We're going to do color theory right now because otherwise they win."
Right.
And that's what we did.
Good.
But that day, most of the young men left. They were all, they all went to whatever the name of that in Central Tennessee. There's a Army recruiting place, and they were all there. So the school emptied out.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of that. That was like my first year teaching it, straight out of graduate school.
Wow. And were you teaching at like a local college in Tennessee, or where?
I was at East Tennessee State University.
Oh, okay. Got it.
In Dauphin City. Yeah. So it was a 4-year school. I was hired onto a tenure track path, but it was it was 1 year and then supposed to go into full time. But they didn't have, they lost the funding for that.
Right.
Everything was pulled, everything changed. So I taught there for quite a bit longer as adjunct, but what ended up happening was, it was really a blessing in disguise, because academia wasn't right for me, but having plenty of time to make my art was.
Yes.
So I started teaching at Penland, John C. Campbell, places like that.
Right.
Showing, exhibiting, and making work, and just, my work is informed by the world around me. So that is, my art is who I am. It's just like, it's not that I was trying to make it for someone else, it's that it has to come out of me.
Right. Right. I totally get that. And I think that's the reason why I want to talk to people like you, is because it's not that we woke up as a kid and said, "I want to be an artist when I grow up." It's that something was in us that we had to share, and that sharing of it is the beauty that we put into the world. And I think people like you need to be celebrated. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is so exciting. And so, before we got in this conversation, we got to have a brief chat, and we've discovered we know common people. She knows, like, briefly, my longtime best childhood friend, who is also in fiber arts and textiles, and I just think that's so cool. How, even though I'm in a different part of the country, part of the United States, that we have so much connection in the art community. Yeah. So I love that, and I love that you were teaching, and that's the path that you took. So what happened? What took you out of teaching and into what you're doing now?
Well, I'm still teaching art history as an adjunct.
Okay.
So I never stopped doing that, because you're going to have some steady income somewhere.
Gotta pay the bills. I know.
That's just a little thing, is bills, and so I have various income streams, but on my second year in graduate school, I had to have I had a double hernia. It was really from lifting heavy dye pots, really, because I was doing huge pieces. I was doing like 7-8 foot. I figured out I started working with wool, which I'm still working with wool. And so you mentioned my color, so I want to speak to that. Is that part of what I got out of my second year in graduate school? Was there was a course, a whole semester, where we did material explorations, and I was seeking ways to get the color inside the fabric. even more so than weaving, because with weaving, you have the color of the yarn and all of that, but it's like pointillism, right? Unless you're using solid blocks.
Right.
And when you're doing it onto the surface, like when you work with cotton or painting, the color is on the surface. But with itajime, with shibori, with tie-dye, any different cultures have different names for the same processes. Resist dye. So
Right.
I actually call it now, I say it's resist dye on wool, because it really, I borrow from every single tradition that I can find, but I kind of then use like all kinds of crazy stuff to make my shapes. And so I discovered that. And discharge. So the first thing I tried was dyeing with wool and then using a discharge paste, which for the textile artists out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's either Thiox or something with bleach. It's really, really alkaline. It eats the fiber. It's not, you don't have a hand in the wool. It's just not, it isn't nice. And plus it's toxic and smelly, and, it didn't do what I wanted it to do. And then that was when Yoshiko Wada first wrote her book about shibori, and so it was a new thing, like the arashi pole wrapping and all that. It was brand new. It was cutting edge at that time in 1997. Now it's on every YouTube, as it should be.
As it should be.
Yeah, as it should be. And I teach my method. In my workshops that I teach at places like John C. Campbell or Penland. I've taught at Haystack, and there is nothing that I do that's a secret that I won't share. But most people end up not wanting to do it because it's so much work. But
Right. Right.
anyway, so I had this double hernia and I couldn't lift iPod. So they gave me a key to the elevator, and I started making small pieces and learning how to piece it together, because it was like my show was supposed to be, the graduate show in the museum was that May. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I had to push through that. And that's how I developed this method of creating these colors and then stitching them together, sometimes cutting them apart, stitching it together. And that's what's been evolving over the past, it's 2026. So 25 years I've been doing this, and I'm not tired of it yet.
Good.
But I'm very much into repurposing.
Okay.
So, the last major piece I did took me 3 years, which isn't economically sustainable unless you get that particular piece. I did get paid for my labor, but it was a lot. It was
Okay.
But it was 15 feet by 9 feet of pieces like this, little tiny pieces this big, all hand stitched.
Wow.
You know.
So is it, would you don't consider it quilting in any way? I mean, I know quilting is padded, but it's the stitching of pieces together. Is it, I mean, or it's parallel, maybe?
So definitely parallel. And actually one of the women in my membership is a quilter. You know, we have discussions about this.
Okay.
Because there's, like any discipline, there's different parameters on what's allowed and what's not, or even shows they'll give, like quilt shows particularly, as they should, because I have such respect for traditional quilting, you know, what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you think about East Tennessee, they have that, you know, crazy quilting. So, and if there's quilters out there, you can comment on this or you can write in or say whatever. My understanding of this, and I teach textiles too, and I teach textile history, but whenever I get to the quilting, I always say, okay, caveat, this is how I understand it. You know, I know a lot of art quilters, is that there's got to be layer, a top and a bottom.
Right.
I think they have to be stuck together. And if it's just one layer, which mine are, then it isn't technically a quilt. Although now I think some quilters show pieces that are one layer, or like the last piece I did, there were so many layers to it, but it wasn't like all onto a bottom.
Right.
So you can get lost in the weeds of definitions. And I do think it's important language, but there's not a name for what I do. People understand it as tapestry. I don't mind when people call them tapestries because, versus the Bayou tapestry is an embroidery. But I was just actually on an interview on Facebook with an art historian, and the new textbook that she's using now, they actually are calling they're not calling it a tapestry. They don't call it Bayou tapestry. They've renamed it because it's not a tapestry. And now it's been called a tapestry for since the 1500s, embroidered tapestry. So
Yeah, we don't have to be defined by things. I try to tell people, do your art. If it goes outside the boundaries of what it is, that's going to make it even cooler for you, right? There are music genres that don't fit into a particular genre. There's all sorts of different art forms that they expand upon and beyond the boundaries to make something different, new, exciting, whatever it may be. And so I love that you do not follow the norms. Yay.
Yeah. And it's funny because part of it might be life experience and back to, what are your aspirations as an artist, or, what makes you tick, or, I can't remember sort of how you put it at the beginning. It occurs to me that when I first started making my work at RISD, I had an exhibit of these large textile pieces in the Wheeler Gallery in Providence. People didn't understand them. They didn't sell. People were like, well, we don't know what we would do with this. How would we hang it? Could we have it on our wall? What is this? Because nobody had ever seen anything like it before. It wasn't a painting. It wasn't a traditional tapestry that's framed under it. It wasn't any of those things. And I've spent years, we've developed a signature hanging process for them, so that we develop these hangers so that if you look at images, there's not that many on my website yet, but there's some. You can sort of see the tops of the pieces. They curl around behind it. They look like they're growing right out of the wall.
Oh, okay.
Because I was hiding, but although lately I've been actually framing things, it's and so, which is, it took me a long time to become accepted as an artist. Mm-hmm. There was a decades-long conversation of art versus craft. People wrote their whole PhD thesis on, is it art or is it craft?
Right.
And it's not unimportant. It's how art history is created.
Exactly. Yeah. And I shared with you my main medium is balloons, and I consider myself an artist of latex, and I create massive sculptures out of balloons and tiny sculptures out of balloons. And I have a lot of these same kind of conversations with people. And for the first 10, 12 years of my business, people did not accept me as an artist. They just were like, oh, good job, you do something cute, right?
Because it's a balloon is cute. Like, what is that association?
And so it's education, right? We have to teach people that what we do is real and it has significance, and that it should be valued for what it is. So I totally feel your journey on that, because that's been my journey as well. And maybe, who knows why, but now people see me as a business, and they see me as legitimate in what I do. So yeah, that's I'm trying to imagine a large scale sculpture of balloons, and it makes me think of, it probably is very much like textile art, because you're putting together color and form, you're tying it together. Color, it's shape, texture, it's size, and how you're coming out of things, and Yeah, shade. I
Can you
mean,
get different kinds of balloons, like different textures of balloons or different
oh yeah,
materials of
and we
balloons?
can make different textures. So we can paint on balloons if we want. We can. I mean, latex is such a incredible medium. It's not for everybody, right? It's not for everybody, but it's the thing that gets me up every day. I'm like, oh, there's a balloon. I need to play with it. So,
Well, there's a reason we're talking right now because I'm thinking, I wonder if that would work for some of the stuff in my installation.
oh, adding balloons in?
Well, so let me tell you a little bit about what the theme of this is.
Yes.
Several years ago, I had an exhibit of my jacquard work and my clamp resist work. So I do both, but I don't have access to a mill anymore. That was when I was teaching. And it just happened to be in two rooms. She had two rooms, and it just, as we hung it, it was just kind of obvious which pieces went together. And when I walked into it the next day, after you hang an exhibit, as you know, as an artist yourself, you don't really see the whole thing usually till the next day because you're so in it.
You're in it, yes.
And then you come in the next day and you're like, oh. And so when I walked in, I saw that there was a room that was like very dry, just almost like the desert. And then there was everything with my clamp resist was like really juicy, really lush. And so I got the seed of an idea, and this was probably 8, 9, 10 years ago, maybe longer. That I would be able to create this environment where everything was just destroyed or dead. Nothing is growing, but there's still beautiful forms, cracks and all the things you see. And maybe even it would be completely silent, right? So, and I had some different experimental materials in there. Like I was experimenting at that time with what happened when you put discharge on wool and it ruins it. And then I had like different materials poking through it, and I had a little bit of metal. I had a few other things, just a tiny foray into mixed media at that point because I was trying to get these different surfaces. Okay. And then you would transition from this, and maybe like there's no sound. Maybe you'd have to put headphones on or something so when you go in there, because if there's no life, there's no noise, right? And then you would transition and you would go into the other space, and it's just vibrant, it's just alive. And then when I was talking to the curator, Terry Jordan, about this, she was like, well, there could be a transition too. She started talking about like there's like this long hallway where you're sort of there's a few pieces, less is, she knows me. I'm going to fill up a gallery and there's usually too much and we got to cut, I'll come in with 30 pieces and she'll be like, Carol, we got to take 10 of these away. And so she holds me in very well. That's why she's giving me 2 rooms, because I need a lot of room. But you're talking about these balloons. Because one of the things I want to do is make trees.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, I got to see some pictures of what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll share.
I'm wondering if they would work, like if you had like a trunk or something, and like the latex texture, different textures was kind of bubbling out through the fiber, or if it was just different. I wonder what that would be like.
It could. It would have to be. How long are your installations up for?
This is going to be up for 3 months, I think. Does the air go away? So this is an ephemeral media, right?
It is. So latex is biodegradable. So unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately,
right.
I work with a very impermanent medium. So I build it. You have to experience it right then and there. 10 days max, and even at 10 days, it's not very beautiful.
So it would have to be like an event. It would have to be like, maybe I created a tree. It was like this beautiful tree, and then it decays. Like it's part of the.
So it starts drooping and deflating, and
we got to talk about this more.
We should talk more. That would be fun. Yeah.
You're getting an insight there of that's how my mind thinks.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that we think a lot alike. I think I definitely think that way. So, and I'm just so excited to have met you because this podcast is something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I finally was like, I'm just gonna do it. And now I get to talk to all these incredible people that are creating art, and it just fills my heart up so much just to see people doing it and being it. And I've talked to a lot of artists that they're like, it's not so much about the money. I mean, the money is important, right? We need to make money. We need to make money in order to continue
Right.
doing what we do.
Right.
But at the same time, that's not what gets us out of bed every day. It
No.
really is just, oh, I have this idea. I need to create. I need to do whatever. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing. So tell me, you are just going to keep doing what you're doing, or do you have a plan for how your future is going to go?
Well, so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I mean,
Right.
But I've also got this. I've started working with a few people. I've started taking. I've got. I can't work with very many people, and I don't have the bandwidth for it. I figure,
Too much peopling going on.
I can't do it. But I working with people that are needing to find their creative spirit really fuels me. It's that I want to transition out of teaching art history and get a chance to do have my people working, helping people realize their own dreams, their own creative dreams, which that's pretty my wheelhouse, or my jam, if you say, whatever that is being able to hear what people are saying and say, oh yeah, you could try this or you could try that, and hearing what it is that they're looking for, and finding their creativity. And I just love doing that. And I love teaching workshops. I haven't done it in a while, but I want to probably apply for another round of these now. After the pandemic, my workshop at John C. Campbell, I had 2 or 3 workshops that were canceled, and it was 6 years later, and I just haven't I haven't gotten. I see all these other artists; they're doing it, but I'm just like, I've been busy doing other things, and I haven't done that. You sort of get. But I'm ready to go back and do a little bit of that again. But it's the travel to do a lot of it is hard. But there's a few studios I want to work at. There's a big studio.
Can you
down.
drive? Can you drive to John C. Campbell or no?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you can drive.
I drove up here to Tennessee. I have a truck. That's why I have a pickup truck.
Right, okay, yeah, because we have to fly in to get over there. We fly into Atlanta and then drive up. So when we come out, because my husband teaches out there as well. So he's an encaustic artist. So he teaches.
Oh, wonderful. I love
Yeah.
encaustic. I took a class in encaustic once.
Yeah. Well, he teaches at John C. Campbell. So we have that connection as well. So I need to know when you're going to be there again, because maybe I can.
Oh, I will definitely. Now that we're on each other's radar, we'll definitely stay in touch. John C. Campbell is on my list of places to reach out to again. So.
Yeah, if I could just figure out what I want to teach, I would apply. But balloons don't fit into the folk school theme very well. So
No, unfortunately.
unfortunately not. That's okay. But yeah, that's good. Well, this has been, I mean, you are just charming. I just love you to death. And I'm so excited that you reached out to me to do this. And we will share links if you want to share right now what your website is so people can have that. But I'll also put links into the verbiage behind the podcast and everything like that. So,
Well, you can find me at www.carollebaron.com.
okay.
And so my website is still, some of the things are old because I'm a little bit behind, but I think you can get like a free stitch meditation on there. You can get on my mailing list. I'm putting together a color class, so there's a form on there. You can sign up or for early interest, if something you might want to do at some time. So, you can reach me there.
Yeah. No, I think your website looks great. I stalked you a little bit before we got on here, so I could see all the cool stuff that you're doing. So I think your website looks good. So don't tell people it's out of date. Just
Well, the reason I want to be full disclosure, because I know that there's at least one thing on there that maybe, actually, maybe not. I had a retreat the beginning in the spring. Might be gone. If you say it looks current, maybe I took it down, because I had a virtual retreat, and I
Okay.
thought it was still up there.
There is still a virtual retreat up there
Yeah,
as an option. So yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's over.
So you
So
can't
full
sign up for that,
disclosure,
darn it.
we'll be
Okay.
doing another one this fall, but that one, if you sign up for that, you missed it. But we'll be doing it again. They're free and they're really fun. We do stitch meditation in them.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the reality is we're artists. How do we stay on top of social media and website and
it's
all
impossible.
this kind of stuff and focus on what we're doing? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like to be transparent, you know.
Yeah.
I'm really out here, even if you say, "Oh, why isn't that thing?" Well, you know what? I'm there. If just email me.
Yeah, email you. It's a landing page and it looks good. So go there. So to check out everything. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the time and for being on my podcast. And
Thank you for having me. It's
you
an
are,
honor.
yeah, and I look forward to connecting with you a
Me
little
too.
bit more on the other side of this. So
Definitely.
awesome.